We're
We
live.
are live right now.
Now we're live.
Hello, hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Naked Three, where we talk about all the elephants in the room and get emotionally naked. I am Lorraine. I'm from New York and I'm a career counselor.
I am Larice. I am also a psychotherapist and I live on the East Coast.
Where on the East Coast, Larice? Pray tell.
No, North Carolina. Carolina del
I'm,
Norte.
I'm Tracy Rubel. I'm a San Franciscan living in Heidelberg, Germany, and I am also a nerdy therapist. Kick us off here, Larice. What are we talking about today? We sent an email to all the Sidewalk Talk listeners, letting them know what we're going to talk about for the next 3 months.
Today.
You just froze.
What happened? She's frozen.
Wow. Okay. Today, it was so amazing that it just zoomed out. Accountability.
Let's bring it. We got hot and bothered about this prior to when we were in our one-on-ones. We want to talk about accountability after the domestic terrorism at the U.S. Capitol building last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are they even calling it domestic terrorism? Or are we calling it that?
I'm calling it that. I read this great article on LinkedIn by she was hired by a news agency to quit prettying up the language. She goes, call stuff what it is. That's how you stop misinformation. That should be called domestic terrorism. What do you think?
That's what it should be called, but I haven't heard any news outlets here calling it domestic terrorists.
But we're a news outlet.
Well, say that again, Tracy.
We're our own news outlet, though, right now.
Oh,
look, we have an audience of 3 right now.
Okay, so I will call it domestic terrorism. I think I came into work the next day thinking if it was my Muslim friends, and it would have gone totally different.
Well, or if it was Black friends.
Our Black friends or our Black spouses or brothers or sisters.
Well, the reason why I went straight to the Muslim population, because I live in New York and I remember September 11th and how people were reacting. They're all terrorists, blah, 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 that sort of thing. So I just remember thinking if it was a bunch of men with I forget the name of
a wrap
head coverings that they put on their head, that it would have gone a completely different way. So that's where I went, and then I just feel like, after I saw the selfies and things like that, I'm like, really? It was just ridiculous.
Yeah. So where's the accountability?
Well, for whoever's watching right now, weigh in. What do you call it? Do you call it domestic terrorism? All right. So what was your experience like? Like, how did you travel that emotional landscape after all that happened? I know we were on text and trading voice memos the day of, but after that, what happened for you guys?
Pissed off a little bit and disappointed. Not disappointed with what those rioters, domestic terrorists, whatever folks want to name it. I was more disappointed in the response of the people that's supposed to be in control and safety of the folks on the inside. It seemed like an inside job to me. Somewhat, anyway, because how would you go in there and know where everybody is and their offices are without somebody telling somebody something?
So it felt like a real big betrayal. It sounds like somebody gave up some information and betrayed people's safety. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. That is my belief. Something like that. And I just think it's not somebody not being accountable when people that are brown and Black that stand in the street to protest against things that are real and they get shot or they get killed or they get rubber bulleted in the mouth and lose teeth. But these folks walked in and they walked out. And then again, where's the accountability? What does accountability mean to some people?
Mm-hmm.
And even though there have been a few arrests, there are investigations going on, but I'll just broad stroke and say for the vast majority of the people that were there, they're going to get away with it.
And organic meals, according to some news outlet.
Oh,
One
yeah.
of the people that was arrested needs organic meals because he'll be so sick if it's not organic.
No.
Right. So as a person of color, I would be thankful just to get the meal.
Yeah.
So where's the accountability again?
Well, what I'm hearing you say is that you don't just want the accountability for whoever didn't make sure the Capitol building was secure, and the accountability for who didn't make sure there were just as many police force there as when there were Black Lives Matter marches.
Absolutely.
But also the accountability for who is allowing for these guys that are getting incarcerated to get special treatment. Like, how is that accountable if they're getting special treatment? That feels really angering to you.
Yeah, and it's like white privilege, plain
Yep.
and simple. I mean, that is like white privilege on steroids. To go to jail and to ask for an organic meal, who does that?
And you're a criminal.
And you're a criminal.
But I mean, I used to do these workshops with the Department of Social Services where I live, and it was for chronically unemployed people. And that was code for people re-entering the workforce, which is code for people who had long stints in prison. And I never forget, we were talking about interviewing skills and networking. Like, all right, where are other former, inmates? Where are they working? Things like that, blah, 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 blah. So we talked about like having a network of how to find a job. And one of the participants, I'll never forget, it was a white guy. He goes, well, I had a job, and when they found out about me, they took it away from me. I said, well, technically, it's not yours. It's whoever owned the company. It wasn't taken from you. I said, but how I would handle the situation is clearly it sounds like you feel like you had no control over it, but like maybe a celebrity, get out ahead of it. Say, hey, listen, I know you're calling me for this interview. I want to let you know I have a criminal past. This is what happened. If this is going to prevent me from employment, well, let's not move forward. That way you don't waste your time, money, and energy going for the interview to get rejected. He was like, well, they still took it away from me. And I'm thinking to myself, this white guy got a lot of nerve. You spent 15 years in prison. Nobody took a job away from you. Like, are you nuts? I'm like, even as a criminal, you still think you have white privilege.
So it goes back to accountability last Wednesday, certain groups overall. Where is the accountability? How do we hold not just Tuesday, but how we hold people accountable in it? Should it be in an empathetic way?
I wonder about holding each other accountable, right? I mean, for me, I'll say one thing about empathy. I am interested, we talked about this earlier. I'm not interested in engaging in dialogue with somebody who's not willing to humanize me and the people I love.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that empathy or dialogue means, and I wrote a piece a bit about this on the Sidewalk Talk pages, it does not mean idiot compassion, which is about it's about enabling white supremacy. So I'm not into that. I also, though, am not into giving somebody a lot of my fire.
Mm-hmm.
But man, if I gotta say, I imagine you may have some accountability needs from me as a white person. Like, what about the accountability you're expecting from me? I mean,
But I don't know really how to answer that as just a single white person, but I would say, like, as a group, just come to the table and keep it real. Own your shit. You know what I mean? All white people are not bad, but all white people benefit from white privilege, no matter how poor they are. And are they accountable for that white privilege, or do they deny that they benefit from it? Where again, with this accountability as a group.
I mean, for me, I wouldn't say, I honestly feel like, as far as, and I'm broad stroking white women, I feel you guys have the handle on accountability, right? Like calling each other out and things like that. What I would like to see is more cisgender white men calling out racism when they see it. For instance, I have a friend that I made at the gym, and she's trans, and I knew her pre-transition. And, you know, when I saw her after, you know, the pandemic, I was like, oh, hey, how's it going? She told me she fully transitioned, blah, 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 blah. And we started talking about, like, you know, just womanly stuff kind of thing. And one of the things she said to me was that big time accountant. I mean, I Googled them. I was like, oh, they're a big deal. So went to their boss to say that the other Black woman in the office who works harder than she does made $10,000 less than her. She went to the boss and said to the boss that it wasn't fair. And the boss said to her, what do you care? And she said, well, I care, and I am willing to give up $5,000 of my salary so we can make the same amount of money. I was like, wow, couldn't your boss have said, oh, I will increase her pay, which he didn't. And she said to me, the boss said to her, you know, I didn't mind you being an effeminate gay guy, but this whole women thing I'm not into. And she called him out on it, like, you know, that was discriminatory. That was this. And I said to her, and I was like, and that's your privilege that you have had as a male, understanding and seeing both sides. So I would like to see more cisgender white men call out racism when they see it. You know, call it out and say, you know what? And don't kind of like skirt it under the rug, like, you know, that's discriminatory. That could be seen as discriminatory, because I have friends date white guys and they're in corporate America and they call it out, but very subtly. You know, that could be seen as discriminatory. I would rather it be seen, no, that is discriminatory and you can be fired for it. So that's the accountability I would like to see on a macro level, you know, white men calling it out. Because even I was having a conversation with a white male today, cisgender, and I was like, you know, that was just so like blatantly disrespectful what they did. And I was like, if it was somebody else, it would have gone a totally different way. And instead of him saying it was racism, he called it preferential treatment. You know, and there's preferential treatment, Lorraine, in all groups. I was like, really? That's what we're doing? I was like, I was like, that's racism. I was like, I'm telling you from where I sit, that looks racist. It's not what it is. It's what it looks like. The optics on that was all off. He was like, well, you know, and I just thought like, he just can't handle it.
Right.
And I just keep thinking back to the point of, you know, that white solidarity that, you know, if I think like them, then I'm a racist, and I am definitely not, because I love everybody the same kind of thing.
Well, that's the accountability that I'm talking about. If a person has racist type behaviors, no matter what color they are, if they come to the table and talk about it, I have racist type behaviors, then there could be some dialogue. But when someone comes and say it's a preference, how the hell is that a preference? What transpired last Wednesday? How's that a preference?
Because that's his point of view.
Right. So I'm like,
and because they got preferential treatment is what he's saying. He didn't use the word racism. I used the word racism, and I was like, no, that was racist.
And so it was not any treatment either. They just broke in, like they broke in your house. Like, you know, you're in bed and they break in your house. That's pretty much what they did. They just broke in our house because it belongs to all the taxpayers.
And also accountability is seeing the truth for what it is. Because clearly he was downplaying it.
And clearly. Some people have a problem with seeing that. Yes.
And a lot of times racism is clear and blatant, and somebody will say, yeah, no, I don't think it was like that.
It's an okie doke though. If I can convince you the art of the deal, the art of the deal. If I can convince you that blue is really green, and I get enough people to with me to tell you that blue is really green, at some point you might start to believe that the blue is really green until
Mhm.
someone comes in and snatch you out of that group and say, you know what, that is really not blue. That is really green or whatever color it is. I think it's just it's I don't know, it boggles the mind to think that someone could walk up in a place and feel like there's no accountability. I could just walk in there and come out and say, oh, I was feeling some type of way, so I thought I would walk in there. Now, why am I being punished?
But people don't teach their children to be accountable on the smallest things. Where I work part-time at the gym, well, this was pre-COVID, people would bring their kids in for the childcare, and I would always say good morning to the parent and good morning to the kid.
Mhm.
I would tell you 99% of the parents would not reinforce saying hello. I was
Ooh.
taught as a child, if someone says hello to you, especially an adult, you say good morning back.
Mhm.
When you enter someone's space, good morning. That's just good manners. So that the parents don't make their children accountable.
So
Like
how,
someone says good morning to you, and I would always joke it off like, oh, maybe you're not having a good morning. And the parents would just keep shuffling them along. Maybe one member would say, excuse me, Lorraine said good morning to you. So I'm not surprised that these grown ass people had no accountability. Some of them were not taught that. They had no reason to ever be accountable.
or do they
Do
feel
you
like
think that's about being white, or do you think that that's being entitled? Is it white? Does white equal entitled, or does entitled equal white, or
I
can
think it's both.
entitlement
I think
I
it's
think it's
both.
entitlement
both.
live anywhere?
I
I
think
think
it's an intertwined slinky. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it comes together
because
and
people can be
overlaps.
entitled. I think people can be entitled no matter what color they are. But I think when people are white in a title, it's like a double dose. You know, you take a teaspoon, they took two, or maybe a tablespoon. So we have entitlement in a lot of young people today. I acknowledge that. I see it. But when someone's white and entitled, um, it's a little bit different. It's like she said, walking into a gym. Maybe they feel like because you're the gym employee, you don't deserve to be spoken to, you
Hmm.
know, or if it was a different lady that said hello, if you switched her out, would it be different?
Hmm. It reminds me of this conversation I had this morning with Toke Muller that I told you I was so enamored
Mhm.
of.
Oh, yes, you felt empowered and reinvigorated.
Yeah, he definitely lit a fire under my ass and all of our asses about keeping sidewalk talk going and get our asses back out there and listen. I even got him to curse by the end. I'm like, oh, we're vibing now. You just used the F bomb 3 times.
Oh, the F bomb is your jam.
I haven't said it once
Mhm.
today.
Mhm.
But what I hear you saying that reminds me of him is, what does it mean to teach people to be good citizens? And that's what he said. Where I come from, you don't use people. You don't use people for profits. That what we do in our education system is teach people to be good citizens first. And that
Mm.
includes saying hello. That includes being accountable for your actions. That includes looking at people as human. That includes treating people with dignity because we're equal. He goes, so I don't, he said, I don't have the same racial experience, although his project he does a lot of social justice work. But I liked that frame because it feels like it's the frame that you're speaking to.
I
We're
Well,
talking
agree.
about citizenry. What does it mean to be a good citizen?
I remember specifically my daughter and I were in the Dominican Republic on a resort. And, the staff comes around and picks up the empty plates from poolside. And she had said to me, well, I'm going to go back up and get more food from the buffet. And I was like, oh, well, take the plate with you. And she flung her head around and she was like, they have people to pick that up.
Your
I was
daughter said
like,
that?
yes, she was younger. She was younger. She
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
"There's people to pick that up." I was like, excuse me. They
Mm,
are here to provide a service. They are
mhm,
not your servant. And every
Mm-hmm.
single time they pick something up after you, you better say thank you. They're not your slave or your servant. And she always remembers that. Anytime we go out and someone picks up the knife, the fork, she says, thank you. Any service person, like if we go to the bathroom and someone's cleaning the bathroom, thank you so much. We appreciate you. You know, that type of thing, because it's like, who do you think you are? They're not, but, and I think parents don't do enough of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it starts with at least a hello. I walk in the park almost every day. I cannot tell you how many times I see parents with their kids. Good morning. The parent doesn't speak and the kid doesn't speak. What is that nonverbal lesson you're teaching the kid?
Yep.
What is the lesson that the kid may figure out? And I'm making an assumption. Oh, my dad only speaks to tall white men. My dad doesn't speak to Black women or women that don't look like my mother. You know what I mean? Because kids are observing this. So
they model that behavior. But look at our country. Our country is built on everything that Tracy was saying this gentleman is not. Our country is built on using people. Our country is built on selling people. Our country is built on being nasty to people. So how do we change that? Because if you look at our country, people say what happened is not our country. It's a damn lie. This is our country. Everything we see has been here for hundreds and hundreds of years. This is nothing new, white people.
So I know we got a little hot under the collar about the role of empathy. You know, we just got done at Sidewalk Talk teaching listening across political differences. And I want to be unequivocally clear with you. And I really long to be seen and understood here. I am not wimpy. I am not wimpy. But what I will say is that I believe that learning to be a listener and center other people's stories rather than our own is part of how you build a good citizenry. But I also believe that empathy is not wimpy either. Empathy means because I love you and because you are duped by a narcissistic bully, my empathy is going to hold you accountable by throwing your ass into jail.
Right. Right.
I don't think empathy is devoid of throwing somebody into jail when they've broken the law, when they're attempting to overthrow a government, right? I don't think empathy is wimpy when you say to the news media, I've been really annoyed with the news media for a long, long time at their equivocating. I'm like, Jesus, why do you soften the language so much?
Right. Unless it's Al Jazeera. I love that. They didn't soften it all, but they took it off television.
I'm so sad they took it off the air.
Right, and I think that's right because they did not.
What did I miss? What did I miss?
Al Jazeera. It didn't soften things.
But what did they take off the air?
They used to be a U.S. Al Jazeera. They used to be a U.S.
They don't, there isn't one anymore?
No. You can only get it on Facebook Live.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. The only world news we get, I mean, other than the local news stations, is like BBC or something like that. But they just, I think that I really enjoyed watching Al Jazeera because it was just really straight facts. I mean, even the news outlets that I listen to, I said to my friend the other day, and I won't name the outlet, the anchor was talking. I'm like, he's giving his opinion. Like, I thought they're supposed to be reading a fact prompter. He was like, this is ridiculous. And I can't believe it. I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, you're supposed to be delivering us the news. Like, this is not your personal commentary, you know? And this is an outlet that I look at all the time. And people laugh at me because I give Fox News 10 minutes every day.
For real?
Hands every single day.
Are you trying to like do some emotional weightlifting? Because I almost have a hernia every time I or a coronary.
No. I think it's good sometimes to look at the other guy to know. I look at the other guy.
I want to see what they're saying. I want to see it because that's part of the understanding.
I know what they're saying because half my friends from high school.
Okay, you hear it on your feed. You're already in that set. You already know what they're saying. I don't know what they're saying.
Right, because remember, they called that Biden won before the other news network.
They did, and people were upset about that. Right. So I always want to hear what they're saying and what their purview is. And when they're talking about the same topics, they show different images.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So they didn't show the violence, the same level of violence that they showed on other news outlets. It was much softer. You got to know what they're saying, because that's part of listening, because when you're listening, you're understanding.
Right.
And that's part of not judgment.
And you kind of know what you're dealing with from the other side. You know what I mean? Because there's two sides of every coin. Every now and then it needs to be flipped. Right. So, every now and then you have to flip that coin to see what's on the other side.
See, Tracy, the thing is, you have context. We don't.
So just a quick pause for those of you that are watching. Do you want to weigh in and tell us where you fall on this? We're talking about, do you guys watch the other news channels? Put it in the comments. We want to know. And if you do, how often and how much? We're talking about accountability right now. And both Larice and Lorraine watch the other news channels.
How come
we want to know if you do too?
Yeah.
I don't have the nervous system for it. You know what? That's the home I grew up in. I grew up in Southern California in Orange County. You know what it is? I'll tell you what it is. I have a really hard time with lies.
Well, wow. I don't know what to say about that, because they're everywhere.
No, I understand that, but it's so blatant. I see it on liberal media too. Don't get me wrong. I see all the sensationalism so that we keep coming back and watching the news, and I get annoyed by that. But man, there is some fomenting of some BS, like stuff that's not real. And I'm like, how is this legal?
And that's
I can put there.
Hi, Yarnell. Thanks for tuning in. I will watch other news channels just to see what the other side says.
Right. It's like I may not shop at a certain store, but I might go on that website just to see what they have. It may not be the quality of things that I use, but I might just go over there just to see if they're going to help me get a lower price or something, because they're lying about,
I'd rather listen to somebody who's a Republican on the sidewalk than I would to go watch Fox News.
I would rather watch Fox News than listen to someone on the sidewalk that was Republican. I mean, I do it, but if I had to pick my poison,
I would do both.
Yeah, no, I love listening to people one-on-one, because there's a heart there.
Mm-hmm.
When it's just a social media page or a TV news page, there's no heart there. There's no dialogue. When you look somebody eyeball to eyeball, there's a chance for change. There's a chance for connection. There's a chance for impact. There's no chance for impact.
Because we know other media is scripted. All media now is scripted. If you look at it, it's scripted. But when you're face to face, it's sort of hard to be scripted one-on-one. Maybe if there was 4 people and just you, they might be scripted. But when it's just one-on-one, I think people give you more of themselves that are real, even though it may not be the whole truth.
Yeah. We had some interesting guests on our lives just leading up to our Listening Across Political Differences workshop. And these are people that will go sit and listen to the opposite side. And I really aspire to do that. But right now I can't after what happened last week. I don't have the capacity. And that's okay too. That's empathy too. It's empathy for myself, because then I'm just going to be a jerk. I'm not really going to be listening. I'm just going to be pretending. So I think it's better right now that I don't offer that,
I mean, I can listen to the other side, because as I said to some of my friends, that if I was sitting with someone who went into the White House and was doing what they were doing, help me understand your thought process. What were you thinking? What was going to be your payoff for this?
Also, Tracy, what I'm hearing from you is that your life has been overloaded with Fox News type of people, and your cup runneth over and you're just done. You're like, I'm over them. So that's why. So for me, especially, I tell you, it's like the small little lessons that I learned from students. When a kid showed me his resume and we're like, don't put any political things, religious, da 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 da. And he was part of the Young Republicans and the Young Democrats. And I was like, can I just ask you, like, why both? He's like, I need to see both sides of the story and make my own decision. And I thought that, and he was a cisgender white man. I thought that was, to me, like, that's what we need more of in the world. somebody who's going to listen to both sides and make their own opinion, not just one-sided. So that's why, I give it a chance. I can only tolerate it for 10 minutes, but, it's on a loop. But to me, that's about learning, So when people come with this difference of opinion, I have context of why they may believe that. Because from what I saw on the news, they thought they were protecting the country.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I need to know, what were they protecting the country from? And I'm not getting that from the outlets that I listen to.
I'll give you a login to my Facebook page and you can just go. I think it's funny because earlier when we talked today, you guys I seemed like I was the voice of dialogue, and you guys were like, screw that. And now you guys are more the voice of dialogue, and I'm more like, screw that.
I think dialogue is great to a point. But, you step into a certain space and we're going to go beyond dialogue. You know what I mean? It's like we can have a conversation all day long, but there's a certain boundary that one must stay in to keep it neutral or on a good, keep it balanced. And all that stuff last Wednesday, I just didn't get the comparison to the BLM. That comparison didn't make any sense, trying to blame it on Antifa. It's like, if you're going to do something, be accountable and say, I'm going to go in here and do this. I know that I'm going to be accountable, because whatever the consequences are, I'm going to accept the consequences. Don't witch and whine when the consequences come down. Say, okay, I'm accountable. I did it, and I'm going to accept the consequences, whatever that is.
They've never been held accountable. See, when people tell me I talk too much, I like to ask the dirty questions. So cisgender white male again, having a conversation, joking around. I was like, what's up with you guys raping women behind dumpsters? What is that? What is the deal with that? Why are you guys
just come out the gate? Just tell it like it is.
What is going on? I had a relationship. No, I had a relationship with the kid. So the kid, this is what he said to me. He was like, listen, my mom was a single mom and my best friend was Black, right? And the two moms were single that had these sons, a single son. So they would do, like, they co-parented. They would pick up, one mom would drop off, one mom would pick up. And he did it right up until 8th grade. The moms were like doing this tag team parenting thing. And he said it was in high school. Well, before that, he started to notice when he was with the Black mom, people would treat him different. And when he was with his mom, the Black friend was treated differently. So he started noticing it very early on. And he goes, real talk. I said, okay. He's like, no one ever tells us no. So when we get told no, we're angry and we throw a temper tantrum. I was like, oh, is that what it is? He's like, oh, yeah. Just that simple and that complicated. So really what you're seeing when people don't hold themselves, like when they're not being taught to be held accountable, when they don't get their way, they're throwing an adult temper tantrum.
So let's just wrap up with this last question.
Okay.
And relative to what Yarnell said. These were domestic terrorists. How would you like to see the folks held accountable by the law, by the news outlets, by other white folks in their community? And we'll each go round robin and then we'll end there. Does that sound cool?
Mm-hmm. So, okay, I'll go first since I'm next to you. I say the law and other white people. For example, when a Black family in Arkansas or somewhere in the South had a Black Santa Claus, anonymous note was sent to the family: take your Negro Santa down. Okay, so he went to the homeowners association. I guess they were white. Everybody, just about, probably except for that person, went out and bought the biggest Black Santa they could find and put it in the yard.
That's awesome.
So how do you think that person felt that sent that anonymous note? That's what I like to see. And the consequences by law.
What's the version of that we could do? What's the big Black Santa Claus that we could all put in our front yard right now in response to the terrorists? I love
Well,
that.
I think a lot of people, some of the white friends that I know, they're wearing Black Lives Matter T-shirts, or they could just, you could come up with something that offset what they did for everybody, but get the majority group to be on board with,
Huh.
like that neighborhood did. And that to me was a good way of getting back at what they did, because what they were trying to do, it didn't work. Some people had Santas like 20 feet tall. Where they got them, I don't know. But everybody was just told to go out and buy the biggest, blackest Santa you could find and put it in your front yard.
And then what do you want law
So
enforcement to do?
go by the legal consequences. Whatever the legal consequences are, to the fullest extent of the law, give it to them. Because I
And all
think
of them.
all of them, because
Mhm.
all behaviors have consequences.
What about the
And
news outlets that they're pumping them full of stuff that's not factual, that the election was stolen?
they should get consequences too.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Financial consequences would probably be the best for the news outlets that are.
Mhm.
Um, there has to be some type of accountability for undesired behaviors.
Mhm.
If not, they will continue, as we have seen
Mhm.
over the last 4, 5, 6 years. That's my take.
God, I love this Black Santa idea. We've got to come up with like a national emblem that everybody puts in their window and everybody
Right.
wears for the next 2 weeks. You come up with that, Larice, and let's get it
A
going.
t-shirt, sweatshirt, something in your window, a flag, they hang outside your door. It's just
Well, not an American
something
flag.
we have. Well, no, something we have to show that we are united more than we're not. We're not with all of this BS mess. We want to be connected more than these folks. Because to me, that's a small group of people.
Yanel wants white friends to speak out publicly, follow the letter of the law, and prosecute. The news outlet should be fine. I totally agree. So for me, accountability, I would like to see everyone arrested. I would like to see the blemish on their record. And I would like to see how it would affect future prospects of jobs. Because I have worked with there are so many Black men in jail for selling marijuana.
Or rolling a joint.
Right. Whereas now white men are, breweries and growing marijuana and making millions of dollars. So I would like to see people prosecuted for sure. I want it on their work record. I want them on the domestic terrorist list, that if they decide to fly anywhere, they're taken in the room on the side and they're searched.
Ooh, I like that one. That they are listed on the domestic terrorist list and they can't
Yes.
fly.
And they
I
cannot
think that
fly.
it would be really, really good.
Yeah, they cannot fly. And if like my dad had some sort of ticket from 1974, and the last time he came through immigration, he was searched from a ticket from 1974.
Wow.
That's ridiculous.
Right. So I want them, like, you can't fly, or if you fly, whatever, and some sort of restitution, to like some sort of restorative justice, because to me,
Ooh, I like this.
I don't like it. To me, the reason why I say restorative justice, because if they're prosecuted and they're angry, something worse might happen. I feel that you should go teach at an elementary school for the summer. I think you should go be a social worker and make home visits to homeless children and be in a food pantry and talk to some of these people. You know what I mean? As part of restorative justice, picking up garbage on the side of the road as community service, to me, it does no one any good. And as far as the news outlets, I would like us to go back to facts, but did we ever really truly have facts? Everybody's truth is different.
I think back in the day there was more facts. I'm like you. I don't think there was ever total facts, but I think it was more based on facts. Because today I don't know what it's called.
Well, it's funny because I can pinpoint the day that I knew the news was going downhill. the day that I read in the newspaper that Kellyanne Conway said it was alternative facts. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? There's such a thing? So, and I was like, we're never going back. And then once
No, I thought at the minute that Donald Trump started getting coverage for asking Barack Obama for his birth certificate, I'm like, why is this news? Like, stop giving this guy a platform.
Right.
But
This is
people
racism, and you're giving him a front page spot on the newspaper. Give me a break.
Right.
So I'll answer the question because I know we got to wrap up. But before we go, there's a few of you that are watching. The question is, what accountability would you like to see by white folks, by the law enforcement, and for the news media? Well, for the terrorists, not by white folks, for the terrorists, yeah, you get what I'm saying.
Right.
For the terrorists.
What do you want? What is the accountability you'd like to see have happen for the terrorists? What is the accountability you'd like to see happen to Donald Trump? I don't want to talk about this guy. Do you? I'm like over giving him space. I would like to see. I've been really interested in the financial hurt. I also really want everybody thrown in jail. I would like to see anybody that's associating or enabling this stuff, even if they weren't there, also called out.
Right.
I just reported one of these high school friends on Facebook. I mean, it was so cuckoo.
Reported them?
I actually looked up where they worked and screenshotted some of their stuff and sent it to their employer and said, hey, I'm not going to go shop at your store because you have a guy that works there that believes in this stuff, and it's crazy.
Yes,
I think that is going to get a lot of people either to not necessarily change their minds, but to look at the bigger picture. Because if you hurt folks in their purse, they'll get it. You know what I mean? Because if they take $15,000 from somebody or $1 million from a company, or that lawyer that worked for this big company got fired, that's going to mean a lot because he's going to have time to think. He was a big time lawyer in California that was at that domestic terrorist thing, and he was fired. It was a big.
I like what Carrie is saying. It should be a federal offense, and they should lose their right to bear arms and to vote. Yes.
Right.
I hadn't even thought about that. You lose their right to
vote. The community together, and you start asking questions, and you come up with a pretty good plan.
Right, because if they become criminals, they will not have the right to vote.
Mm-hmm.
Federal offense, not federal just a criminal. Federal offense. There's a difference.
And when they go to prison for federal, you have to serve all of your time. You don't get like state prison, that little break. So I think there should be really deep consequences and accountability. Even if they don't accept it, you're going to get the consequences, and hopefully they will see within themselves, I have to be accountable. Even if I'm going to do this behavior, I must be accountable. It's your choice to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But when you make that choice, you're also making a choice for the consequences. So why not ride along with accountability?
And I want to just be an advocate for love here and say that this firm, I can be a jerk to my kids and I can shame them and open a can of whoop ass on their head. Or I can say, I'm doing this because I want a just society and this isn't okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not giving too much of my life force. It's just swift, it's clear, it's no, but I'm not fueling the fire. It's just no. Mm-hmm. Here's the consequences, deliver them swiftly, clearly, sharply, and then say, and this is, I don't need to negotiate with you about this. I don't need to dialogue with this. You and I can have a dialogue after
I light your fire.
You have been accountable.
Right. And I think lighting fire is metaphorically because it's like, that's what it is. I'm not gonna smoke it. I'm not gonna let it burn slowly. I'm gonna light your fire. Whatever that consequence is, you're gonna get it quick. I'm not gonna give you an organic meal. You eat what you get. And this is a consequence. Bam, next.
Yeah.
But I think
go ahead.
I was gonna say, I just think this process is getting off track because now they're talking about organic meals. You know,
See, I
I
don't
was
even like
here
to
for.
give that stuff. You know what? I'm following the lead
I
of the
don't. That's
Black
what I'm
women
saying.
on LinkedIn.
The news is going off track instead of staying on track with what the focus is there, and I think it's purposely done to get folks off track, so you will not be thinking what really happened is really tragic,
Mm-hmm.
horribly tragic, by
Mm-hmm.
talking about all these other sides. This is tragic for our country. This is tragic for those people that work there. This is
Mm-hmm.
tragic for the police officers. It was just 100% tragedy. And then they're talking about a meal. Let's stay
Mm-hmm.
on the focus. It was
Yeah, so
domestic
let's not talk
terrorism.
about it.
Domestic terrorism, 100%. And whatever consequences these jerks get, give it to them for. Light the fire big, not smoke it. Just do it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the last thing I was going to say, and then we'll end here, was just I really follow the lead of the Black women that I'm engaged with on LinkedIn, because when they get a troll or they get somebody that tries to veer off of their post, not one person argues with them because they don't want any algorithms to move that negative comment up. And everybody keeps dialoguing on the post as if this person doesn't exist,
Ooh,
which
I like
is
that.
it's phenomenal to watch. And then in a few cases, a couple of these colleagues of mine, they'll say, please don't respond to that person. I'll just delete them or just leave it there because I'd like their boss to see. But please
Mm,
don't respond. And I'm just
Right.
like, what? That's good. All right. We said we keep it to 45 max. We're at 45. I thought that was a good question to finish with. Keep the comments going. The last question was, what accountability would you like to see? Post it and keep the thread going in the Facebook comments. And we'll be back in 2 weeks. What's our topic in 2 weeks, gals? I wrote it all down here, probably in a different. It is
how we mother our children? Was that it?
mothering. Yeah,
Mothering.
it's rooted in a book it's not just about how we mother. It's a colleague of mine wrote a book called The Archetype of Mothering, and it's all the different parts of us that mother ourselves, that mother our communities, that mother our children. It's kind of an interesting concept, but we'll talk about mothering as a theme.
Okay.
And
Hopefully
what
we're in
date
the
is
Bye,
mood.
that?
guys. Bye,
2
Yarnell.
weeks
Thanks
from
for
now.
tuning
I
in.
sent you a calendar item. All right.
Well, I mean, the people that are watching, what's 2 weeks from now? Do they know?
I don't know.
Wait, hold on. I can look it up on the
We'll
calendar.
put okay.
2 weeks from now is the 27th.
Okay, I'll put
January
it in the
27th.
comments. Oh,
Are
that's my
we
birthday.
meeting after?
Ooh.
January 27th. We'll be here
My daughter's January
live to
29th.
talk about mothering. Really? She's an
Yeah.
Aquarius too. That's why I like her
Yes.
so much.
Mothering or motherhood? Mothering?
Motherhood.
Mothering, motherhood, mother.
I don't care.
Mommy?
Common theme.
Whatever that word means to you.
Mommy?
All right.
Mama?
We're going to keep chatting, and you guys are going to have FOMO. We're going to chat for a few minutes behind the scenes. Bye, y'all. See you next week.
Namaste.
Bye.
In 2 weeks.